then we go over news awareness, stuff that'll affect you. If you find value in that, be sure to hit the notification bell so you guys can stay up to date. Let's jump into this one. Why is it when it rains, it pours? Usually it's just one port, but we got the whole Pacific coastline seeming to have issues. Last thing that we need right now in the middle of the summer, supply chain issues. Now in the past, we've seen supply chain issues down in California. We've seen that before, but what we got this time is Seattle, Washington joining the disruption, creating a snowball effect with this SHTF situation. I'm going to go over what you guys need to know about this, and then we're going to talk about how this specifically affects you and what you guys need to be aware of and watch out for. So like I said, this is a bigger deal than what y'all think. When it's over 5.2 billions of dollars worth of stuff sitting off the coastline that should be coming in the middle of the summer, and lots of issues come from this. So as a lot of you know, I live in Washington State, so Seattle is close to home. And trust me, beautiful state, but not beautifully ran. CNBC reports state of freight, Port of Seattle closed due to ILWU labor strife. This was published Saturday, June 10th, 2023. Today, what is going on in the Port of Seattle? We never get news on the Port of Seattle. PMA announces the Port of Seattle is entirely shut down due to a coordinated labor disruption. Big surprise there this day and age. The Port of Seattle is one of the top maritime ports in North America that U.S. ag exporters rely on to ship their produce and grain. I already know what some of you are thinking. Well, that definitely falls in line. AGTC warns the shutdown tarnishes the reputation of the U.S. ag exports as being reliable. And some of you guys are thinking, is this another attack on our agriculture? Maybe getting that ag produce into the grocery store? As we all know, supposed real agricultural produce doesn't have the shelf life like a can of beans. So what's this all about? The labor strife continues on the West Coast with the announcement of the Port of Seattle shutting down due to the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, the ILWU, refusing to dispatch labor to work at the container terminals. This is according to the announcement by the Pacific Maritime Association, the PMA, which represents the terminals at the ports. So what does that sound like to you? I know some wheels are turning out there. Refusing to dispatch labor to work at the container terminals. Interesting, right? So in whole, regarding the whole West Coast, the West Coast ports have faced continuous worker slowdowns and stoppages all week, where an estimated 5.2 billion of trade is floating off the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland, and now outside of Seattle as well. So I know some of you are thinking, what type of ag stuff are they sending? The Port of Seattle is one of the top maritime ports in the North America that U.S. ag exports rely to ship their produce and grain. Some 40% of the state's Washington jobs are tied to trade. Definitely something fishy here, right? Top trading partners were China, Japan, Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and India in 2022. For some of you that don't know what we're exporting, let me break it down for you. The top 6 U.S. exports, according to the port's website, includes apples at 2.1 billion, milk at 1.2 billion, cattle at 101 million, wheat at 756 million, potatoes at 712 million, hay valued at 601 million. The total value of exports in 2022 was 5.66 billion. And did you guys know the NWSA is the country's second largest gateway for refrigerated containers called reefers? Frozen produce like French fries, meat, dairy, apples, and fish are transported in these specialized containers. You gotta imagine, when those things are sitting out there for an extended amount of time, what do you think's going on? And in another article from CNBC, 5.2 billion in cargo stuck off the West Coast ports in truck and container bottleneck. And this one came out yesterday on the 9th. So this one came out on the 9th, and the Seattle one came out on the 10th. Do you see the snowball effect? It's getting worse. This one on the 9th primarily has to do with California, which is huge. They say slow and go West Coast Coast port workforce conditions stemming from difficulties and labor contract talks have created massive bottlenecks at the critical U.S. supply chain and transportation hubs. And like I said, the one in California is monstrous. Truck times in and out of the gate for the container pickup at the ports of LA and Long Beach are up. The number of containers waiting off the ports limits for the port of Los Angeles is more than double than last week's level. Definitely not a good problem in the summertime. The threat of more ocean trade being diverted to the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports are complicated by the Panama Canal experiencing drought conditions, but even if an option will add as much as 12 to 18 days of travel time for cargo bound for the U.S. I'm reading into games. Definitely strategic money games going on. I know a lot of our community members are intelligent on this topic. Leave me the 2 cents down in the comments. Let us know what you know. So as you can see in this graph, average number of containers waiting off the West Coast ports in 2023 in 20-foot equivalent units. You can definitely see that we are going to the moon with this graph. Just week 23 in 2023, we are already at 120K. And like I mentioned before, so many jobs being affected with this. And guys, look in this photo. Look at the backed up line. Truck after truck after truck. And this guy happened to take a great photo of the truck buildup at Phoenix Marine Services Terminal at the Port of Los Angeles waiting to pick up containers taken by the truckers. Not great when 16-wheelers are having to sit there idle, burning diesel all day long. Makes a lot of sense for all the other stuff they're pushing, right? And that's definitely a topic that we're going to be talking about in a later video because they're wanting to switch all of these trucks over to zero emissions. You want to tell me how that gets done with a big diesel driving truck? Yeah, and they've got a date on when that's supposed to happen by. Like I said, we'll come back to that one because that one's going to be a big crap show itself. Now, like I've said before, lots of issues with China, Taiwan, all that kind of stuff. We don't know how much that's playing into it or if it's all just a big economic game. A money game is what I'm talking about. Right here in this map, routes for monthly long-term tramp sailings from Asia to the Americas. So you can see the core trade route and the alternate routes, but coming over from Asia, over to Vancouver, over to Long Beach, and down through the strait. So with this shipping bottleneck and all these issues across the Pacific coast, definitely some other things going on. Right here you can see container wait times at the West Coast ports from Los Angeles to Long Beach to Oakland to Tacoma. We are seeing higher graphs across the board. And it says right here, these slowdowns leave little options for shippers who have containers already en route to the West Coast, said Adila Sheikh, head of North American for Marine Traffic, who told CNBC earlier this week that the maritime supply chain issues were breaking normal. Completely shut down due to a labor strife. Then we have nearly all of California shut down with $5.2 billion worth of cargo sitting out there in the ocean. When did we see that last? Definitely starting to remind me of pandemic times, right? Some of you may know what this is all about, and again, put it down in the comments, but I know one thing that we can take from this. All those goods sitting out there in the ocean, what happened last time they sat out there in the ocean? They got old, almost a year old, and we know some things can't get that old. Some things can't sit in the heat for an extended amount of time. We had all kinds of issues with different products that had sat in cargo containers for way too long with way too much heat. So now we got ag, produce, all kinds of stuff like that sitting out there. We mentioned fish. What happens with fish when it's not kept cool long enough? A lot of them have parasites. I'm guessing parasites are multiplying at a rapid rate. All kinds of viral videos out there right now about parasites in poultry, fish, meat. Yeah, definitely disgusting. You probably want to have an eye for that so you can keep an eye out for something like that, especially when they have $5.2 billion worth of cargo just chilling out there in the ocean right now, but not chilling. Yeah, they definitely have refrigerated cargo containers, but I'm sure that's within reason, and at some point they start losing money. What do you do then? We all know there's good businesses out there and bad businesses. Good people out there and bad people out there. And when you're buying your stuff out there at the store, you don't know what hand that was under. So aside from all the questionable stuff that's sitting off the coastline, not moving, you have to take in mind what also comes with supply chain disruptions and supply chain crises. Inflation's going to continue to go up because it doesn't take a lot of thought to know that the longer that stuff sits out there, the more the prices have to drive up. And at that point, it's a chain reaction. And you and I are going to spend higher prices for stuff that's old. So we don't know what's going to come of this, but we know about the problem at hand right now. Two things to watch out for. Increased inflation. Due to this is the biggest hubs on the whole Pacific side. And the quality of the goods that have to sit out there for an extended amount of time. And one other thing, the situation with the workforce. Not a lot of guys are going to be sitting out there waiting and waiting and waiting